Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my playthrough of Dark Souls 2 Scholar for Sin. So, we're going to head down to the No Man's Wharf area and take a quick look. Notice there's no cliffs or anything else, it's just going down into this tower into the sea. Take a note of that, because I'm going to be mentioning that a little bit later in the episode as a reference as to why this next area isn't quite designed as fluidly as you may like in these games. But again, really just kind of nitpicking nonetheless. But gotta check out my items here. I won't be needing this chime here because I don't really have any miracles going quite yet. But I do plan on having a little bit heavier miracle build. My first playthrough I actually did more of a sorcery build because Dark Souls 1 sorcery was one of those things one of those attributes I never went into, but it was very OP and very nice actually. It was really great for getting out of tight spots. And I think the faith builds have taken over that a little bit more in this game, but you'll be seeing that pretty soon once I get all that going. But to get on a little bit of a topic, I'll talk about the ghosts in the game. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I mean the other players that you'll occasionally see go throughout the level. And we have a blood stain here. I'll go ahead and cue that off here. One new thing in Scholar for Sin is they do a blood pool. So if enemies died in mass in a specific area, you can kind of see them all die. But when Demon Souls came out, it was a very, I wouldn't say revolutionary change in gameplay, but it was very interesting. They started it around a time when games, in my opinion, were a little bit more multiplayer focused, and developers really weren't seeing as much payoff from their games if they just had single player. There was just a high demand for multiplayer games, and in my opinion, thank God that has ended. And Dark Souls, for a single player game, I mean, at the end of the day, it really is single player with, some light multiplayer functions. It's a really great idea, and people don't even really notice it anymore, don't really praise it as much as they should. Let's get this guy here. Not too difficult of an enemy. One thing I do find with enemies in Dark Souls is when they have a larger shield, it's really easy to utilize that lack of attack radius from holding that shield. Typically it will keep them from striking over around whichever side they're holding, which is typically the left. Got a nice backstab in here. Didn't do too much damage, but it's nice. As specific weapons you can strike down, so while enemies are down on the ground, it's a great time to utilize that. Okay, let's see what we got here. Sublime Bone Dust, great. Sweet. Okay, a little bit of a cut there, had a little bit of a recording issue, but literally just walked around the corner here to that entryway I came down in, so we're going to be heading down the elevator up here. And if you don't know about Sublime Bone Dust, you pretty much burn it at Bonfire, and it will upgrade your Estus Flask, so it restores all the much more health. And I feel like the Sublime Bone Dusts are pretty frequent in the beginning of the game, which is nice. They do tend to heal most of your health at the beginning, which if you want a little bit more difficulty, I don't think that you should do that, but gotta get a little bit of the ADD out of Ned Flanders there. Can't sit still. Alright, so let's go through here. As you can see, the water here, I'm gonna check here for a secret area. The water here makes sense with being under the ocean. That's one nice thing they did do here. It's not the biggest touch in the world. And one nice thing they do utilize with water in all the Dark Souls games is it does slow you down, so it does make specific areas a little bit more challenging. But again, this is one of the first areas, so really I'm not going to focus too much. But the slowdown is pretty noticeable, and they do tend to increase the slowdown based on how much water there is. For those of us who do notice these things, it's a little bit stupid, but one issue I have, and it's not really the game designer's issue, but there's a lot of people who put these messages down right next to secret areas, and you have to use the action button to open them. And unfortunately, you'll keep pressing the action button, but it keeps, rereading the message, which is really annoying. Some people are trying to help by letting you know that there's an area there, but it really gets kind of annoying at times. All right, so I'm gonna travel to Majula real quick. And of course I went ahead and cut that out because you guys don't need to see me leveling up and all that stuff. It's a little bit too tedious. And so this is No Man's Wharf, and we're presumably under the ocean. We haven't moved enough horizontally to justify us being the cliffs, so Oddly enough, we're in this area where there's a ship, and it's more or less a kind of a cavernous area, kind of a dock area. But if you think about it, you're still under the ocean, so it doesn't make much sense. And I am so sorry for this, but I'm just going to run by all these guys. One issue I do have with No Man's Wharf is there's really not really any items of consequence here. And I did kind of go through this area a little bit before to try to double check my memory and make sure this area is really worth going into, but I feel like it's really slow. You have to kind of really go through the enemies, and I don't feel like it's really entertaining to watch, but you know, the boss battles is pretty cool. He's a pretty cool boss, so it won't all be for naught. And I promise this will pretty much be the only time I ever really run past enemies like I'm doing right now, unless I die and I want to skip past areas we've already gone over. I'll skip that item there. Nothing of consequence, as I said. Let's go straight up here. So to the right, there's an NPC, and I'll be talking to him eventually. He's one of the spellcasting NPCs, so he sells a lot of spells. Not really worth your time if you're not a spell build. He doesn't offer too much for you. If you're an achievement kind of person, it's always good to get all the spells and, you know, miracles and everything else, but absolutely not a necessity. So we have the Flexile Sentry. This boss is very peculiar. So if you're standing on a specific side of the enemy, it will affect who attacks you, and you must almost always want to have the heavier build, the dual mace wielding enemy, be the guy who's attacking you, because he's a little bit slower and you're in the water, which is going to keep you moving not as quickly as you usually would be. But his attacks are pretty powerful. Not too many hits directly without shield and you're pretty much done for. So I'm going to be a little bit cautious here. Try to get in 1 or 2 hits every time I see that he's, you know, gone through an attack rotation. This is a good time to get attack in. Alright. I pretty much got about an eighth of his health done for so far. Not the worst boss battle. The pillar in the middle is really nice to utilize. Oh, that's some bad damage there. But the pillar in the center is really nice to utilize because he can't really get around it very well. So if you ever need to heal, all you need to do is just make sure that you're right in front of it and he's right on the other side of it. That really shouldn't have hit me. I was far enough away. A little bit hard to tell the attack boxes in this game sometimes, because enemies will seemingly attack you even though there's no evidence that the weapon has hit you at all visually. But that's something to be expected in Dark Souls at this point. So, and anyways, to get back onto the topic of you know, other players and the multiplayer functionality in all these games, well, I try to focus on attacking this boss. So the ability to have other players actually enter your game and try to kill you for your souls, and vice versa. If you kill them, you can get their souls as well, is a very, very interesting dynamic. It was a little bit more revolutionary when the game first came out, when Demon's Souls first came out, and whenever it would happen, there was just this sheer feeling of dread, because you knew that, you know, these guys are most likely very OP. There wasn't really any sort of level spacing in Demon's Souls, so you would be attacked by an enemy, by another player who was, you know, level 120, you know, sometimes 200, whichever else. Some people were utilizing those exploits, and you pretty much knew you were done for. There was a few occasions where you could get out of it, but I felt like when Demon's Souls first came out, before it reached popularity when I was playing it, there was a lot of very hardcore players, not too many casual players, so every time you had a other player come in, you knew you were in for a good fight, which was really nice. And I can't really even think of too many games that even employ that gimmick, other than, of course, you know, Dark Souls clone games, which, you know, I mean, I would like to see a little bit more originality in other developers, but it is a great gameplay style, and it's a great, you know, it's a great kind of game to want to emulate. So if we're gonna, you know, try to copy another game, Dark Souls is a good one to do it for. Oh jeez, I'm not gonna die. Don't worry, I got this. Just gotta keep my space and get a good heal in. I'm out of Estus. I should be able to handle this. Really, not that bad of a boss. Just, you know, if you get careless, you're not paying attention, and you're trying to talk, It requires a little bit more concentration. I do like the design of this guy. I mean, the kind of split body is definitely interesting. It's a little bit more harkening back to Demon Souls. You saw a lot more enemies like this in Demon Souls, and a few kind of like this in Dark Souls as well. But this is definitely not so much a Dark Souls 2 enemy as much as it is Dark Souls 1, in my opinion. All right, come on, get through the attack formation. So that is the ideal attack formation because his arms come out, and that gives you a little bit more ability to get an attack in from afar, then move back real quick. So let's see if I can utilize that. There we go. Nice, and he's done for. Alright, sweet. I got through this a little bit faster than I was expecting to, but that's what comes from running past all those enemies. Again, I won't do that very much at all, but I mean, No Man's Warfare, it's just not my area, to say the least. So we are going to see what's in this chest, and we are actually taking the ship to an entirely new area, which I like. But again, as I've mentioned, I do like in Dark Souls how everything is tied together. You're constantly moving, and you can go back to the beginning area where you started the game and pretty much walk all the way to where you are in your end game, which they don't do in this game as much. But I'll let you watch this cutscene real quick. Alright, so taking a ship to an entirely new area is definitely something new for Dark Souls. It's cool the first time you do it. After, I think the first time it's kind of really old. And of course, level design is a little bit similar right here. We're going to be going up this elevator. They do utilize a lot of elevators in this game, moving up via the elevators rather than just doing it normally as you're going through the game. Which I wish they didn't do as much, because I feel like you can only be in elevators so many times before you get a little annoyed with it. I don't think there's anything else here, so I'm just going to go right up. Of course, they have the pressure plate system in all these elevators, which is kind of interesting. Nice little bow there. Alright. Okay. And that's what's nice about the gestures in this game, especially if you meet another player who joins in your game to fight you as a phantom. It's really nice to have a quick moment to do gestures to each other and bow before you fight. That's a good sign that you're about to go against someone who's most likely skilled, someone who's worth fighting against. The best players tend to have a little bit of a sense of chivalry about them. I think there's a secret wall here. I keep trying, but nothing here yet. I feel like in the other Dark Souls games, there's a little bit more of an indicator that there's a secret passage in areas. There's a little bit more of an indentation, and in this game, it's really a matter of luck. There's a few occasions where there's a little bit more of an indentation on the wall, but it's really not as noticeable. Alright, so there should be a bonfire coming up here soon. There we are. Okay, guys. Well, I'll leave the episode off here. You guys will see me in the next episode, and we'll get some action in here. But nonetheless, take it easy and keep an eye out for the next episode. See ya.